Aristotle, born in Stragus around 384 BC, was arguably one of the greatest thinking minds of the ancient times. He went to educate in Pluto's school in Athens at age 18, then left after 20 years. Historians to this day are uncertain for the reason why Aristotle left the school. One possible reason was that he did not like how the leadership of the school was moving from Plato to Plato's nephew. Aristotle went on to tutor the sons of kings. One boy in particular grew up to be Alexander the Great. Some time had passed when Aristotle went back to Athens and opened his own school. He had studied all that he could during his time and contributed back to most of everything. He was one of the first to classify living things, study into medicine, and did natural history research on nearby islands. Among the other things, Aristotle's contribution to physics was a collection of writings that were about the principles of natural things, both non-living and living. More philosophy than anything else, these writings helped kindle the fire for later physicists and started them asking the right questions. In his writing, he states his thesis on basic 5 elements: motion, optics, the cause of things existing, substance and how they interact, and his thoughts on metaphysics, or knowledge of immaterial being.
Galileo Galilei
Came into the world February 15, 1964 in Italy. First to study medicine, Galileo went to the University of Pisa. Not soon after getting into the university, Galileo starts to study natural philosophy and mathematics. These helped him become a physicist, mathematician, engineer, astronomer, and important philosopher that would be a big part in the scientific revolution. One of Galileo's most known discoveries was heliocentrism, or the planets orbiting around the sun. This discovery was controversial at the time. He also made one of the best refracting telescopes that he used for sideline profit as well as observing the day and night sky to make several planetary discoveries. Using the telescope's concept, he pointed it to the land and turned it into a compound microscope. Expanding on other people's work, Galileo improved the geometric and military compass to make it easier for surveyors and projectile teams to use. Galileo's experimental and theoretical work with objects in motion, mainly experiments involving pendulums, along with other scientists of the time, helped lay groundwork for Isaac Newton's second law of motion. Galileo was also one of the first people to understand sound frequency and develop the basic relativity principles later used by Newton and, even later, Einstein.
Sir Isaac Newton was one of the giants on the field of physics. He was a scientist who lived from 1642 to 1727. Isaac Newton is popularly remembered as the man who saw an apple fall from a tree, and was inspired to invent the theory of gravity. If you have looked over the basics of physics, then you know that he invented calculus and the 3 laws of motion upon which all of mechanics is based. More fundamentally, Newton's mathematical approach has become so basic to all of physics that he is generally regarded as the father of the clockwork universe, the first and perhaps the greatest physicist. One of the main things he was best known for was his laws of motion and his study for gravitation. It was Isaac Newton that discovered the 3 laws of motion in 1687. The first law of motion, also called the law of inertia, states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. The second law of Newton states that the force applied to the object is equal to the object's mass times the resulting acceleration, F equals ma. And finally, Newton's third law states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. James Clerk Maxwell was born June 13, 1831, in Scotland, and died November 5, 1879. Maxwell was one of the greatest scientists who had ever lived, best known for his formulation of electromagnetic theory. He is rightly acclaimed as the father of modern physics. He also made fundamental contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. Maxwell's most important achievement was his extension and mathematical formulation of Michael Faraday's theories of electricity and magnetic lines of force. In his research conducted between 1864 and 1873, Maxwell showed that a few relatively simple mathematical equations could express the behavior of electric and magnetic fields in their interrelated nature. That is, an oscillating electric charge produces an electromagnetic field. These four partial differential equations first appeared in a fully developed form in electricity and magnetism. Maxwell's achievements concerning electromagnetism have been called the second great unification in physics. Albert Einstein was a German-born theoretical physicist who lived from March 1879 to April 1955. He is responsible for developing the general theory of relativity. General relativity summarizes special relativity and Newton's laws of universal gravitation, describing gravity as a geometric property of space and time, or space-time. For example, the curvature of space-time is directly related to the energy and momentum of whatever matter and radiation are present. Although what Einstein is most known for is his mass-energy equivalence formula, E equals mc squared. Mass-energy equivalence is the concept that the mass of an object or system is a measure of its energy content. For example, if you add 25 kilowatt-hours of any form of energy to any object, it increases that object's mass by 1 microgram, also increasing its inertia and weight accordingly, even though no matter was added to the object. Einstein also developed the photoelectric effect, the observation that several metals produce electrons when light shines upon them. Electrons that produce in that effect can also be called photoelectrons. In 1933, when Adolf Hitler came into power, Einstein wrote a letter to President Roosevelt warning him about Germany's plan to the development of extremely powerful bombs of a new type. That event eventually led to the development of the Manhattan Project, a development project that produced the first atomic bombs during World War II. Stephen Hawking is an English theoretical physicist and cosmologist who was born January 8, 1942. Hawking has a motor neuron disease very similar to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a condition that has progressed over the years. He is almost entirely paralyzed and communicates through a speech-generating device. Some of Hawking's best-known contributions was to the fields of cosmology, general relativity, and quantum gravity. One of Hawking's most significant science developments have been on gravitational singularity theorems with Roger Penrose. His gravitational singularity theorems consisted in the framework of general relativity. The theorems attempted to answer the question of when gravitation produces singularities. Along with his other great scientific discoveries, Hawking also developed a theoretical prediction through quantum gravity that black holes can produce radiation, which he then coined the term Hawking radiation.